Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the April 2nd check-in for the Tufts Capstone project. I've put a bunch of stuff in the agenda today because, believe it or not, we've only got like a month left, which is exciting and scary. So there are some things I want to check in with you about. For one thing, I want to check in with you about skills that you want to improve or exercise or make sure that you can show you've worked on whatever during this project. Um, we have some stuff in our notes from February 12th about this. I pulled out some in the notes here. How are the four of you feeling about those? Anything that you're like, oh yeah, I really haven't gotten a chance to do this. I want to make sure, or do you feel like you're kind of on track with the work that you're doing with making sure you get some of those things, or how are you feeling about those?
For me, I feel like pretty on track. I think I got to do like project management with Dasha as well and usability testing in like or like interviews in like the last interviews we conducted. Also working on the design system. I'll be working on that with the design as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I feel pretty good too. Like, I think working on the interview script and kind of like, I think one of the, I don't have it up with me right now, but one of the things I wanted to learn was like how to decide between different testing methods. I think I just, that process of working on this script was, I got to develop that skill. And then the other aspect was design, which is what we're currently working on. So I think the next month would be good for that.
Yeah, I also agree. I feel like a huge kind of thing I relied on was being able to ask you guys questions on how we've been dealing with the user research part of things. And I've definitely found that really helpful. And I think I've definitely learned a lot of things to like keep in the back of my mind.
Okay. Uh, on any concerns about these, or good to go on the things you've been working on?
Yeah, I also agree with the author on our progress so far. And I'm just getting down to the part where we come up with different sort of design ideations. But we currently have like the draft of the um design ideas, but I think we're definitely on track to come up with more like ideations for our user testing.
Okay.
I guess, sorry, one point I just thought of is um, it would be great if I could get some feedback on some of the moderation sessions that I did, or maybe the ones in the future that we do in terms of testing the designs.
Great. Yeah. Okay. So, async after this call, if there's anything you're like, oh, wait, hold on, this skill, like I haven't really had an opportunity to do this, and I'm not sure where it's going to fit in, whatever, let us know. Because we want to make sure that we're giving you space to do those things. But let's move on to the next thing. We should schedule our mock grooming session with like some interested or slash volunteer engineers. Ideally, I think this should be before your presentations so that A, you can talk about it in your presentation, and B, possibly maybe you can iterate slightly on your final results based on what you get in the feedback session. Maybe it depends. So we should figure out when to do this. I think it needs to be during April. Um, do you want to maybe coordinate async after this call on this? I think maybe the last week of April would make sense. But it's like it's your class schedule and stuff, so we can figure out a time that will work with what you've got going on. We just need to make sure we have some advance notice because people are busy, people are in different time zones, different countries, so we want to make sure that we can schedule something with them. So maybe Moya, can we connect on that async after the call?
Yep. That sounds
Similarly, we should schedule a like GitLab internal presentation. Probably between when that mock grooming session happens and your like class final presentation. This is basically like a dress rehearsal. This does a couple of things. This allows you to present your work to actually like a pretty broad audience at GitLab. Hopefully we can get people like our, head of UX, maybe even our head of product to come to this. So it's a nice opportunity to say that you've, presented to those people, that those people have seen your work, that kind of thing. And it also just gives you an opportunity to do like a dress rehearsal. So we should also figure out when we can schedule that. I'd like to schedule that kind of as soon as I can, only because it's a pretty big audience I would like to invite to it. And like the more advanced notice, the more likely they are to fit it into their schedules. So we should schedule that as well. And then the last thing is last year we kind of did like a retro for our last call with the students, and it was actually after their final, and it was kind of nice to like sort of do a retro about it. I think we should do that again this year, but timing is flexible. Right now our last scheduled session is May 7th. I don't know if that's before or after your finals. I don't know if you're like done with the semester at that point and maybe it's too late. But I want to just check on timing on that to make sure that we like know how we're wrapping up. So we can coordinate on that async after the call as well. I just wanted to like put those three things out there because we're getting into like the last stretch of stuff. Okay, so Gina's got the next thing on the agenda. Or I guess I put something on the agenda, which was like, how did the user testing script go? And then we've got some stuff.
Yeah, mine is just an update based on what we talked about yesterday. I invited 2 participants that fall into your target users. I just sent that out today, so I would expect something to be set up hopefully this week. And I sent them your Calendly link. Thank you.
Other than getting some new participants for that, how did stuff with the user testing script go? Where are you at with that stuff?
Yeah. So, we had a discussion with Linda on Monday about our script. I think we were a little bit confused about like concept testing and user testing because we have 2 features and we're planning to kind of like test the concept or like how useful, which one would be more useful. So, we did adjust our script a little bit, and also thank you for all like the feedback and comments. We're currently working on our prototype so that it's like functioning for the interviews. And I reached out to some of like the past interviews from the last round to like participate in our concept test. So I think we have one scheduled for Friday, and then um we'll go from that.
Nice.
And then one other thing for the user testing guide, we were wondering if you guys could send over the compensation information. That way we would also be able to relay it at the end of our interviews, and that way everyone's on the same page, if that's possible.
Yes, I can do that async.
Okay, thank you.
How is the prototyping going? I don't think any of us have seen any of that yet. I'm curious how you're finding using our design system, just like kind of making a prototype for this sort of thing in general. I'm not sure how much experience any of you have with making prototypes as well. I assume some, at least by now. But like just where are you at with it? How is it going? Do you have any sort of questions about it or anything interesting you're finding?
Yeah, I think I can share my screen. Yes.
Yeah, if it's in a state where you're willing to show us, I'm very curious to see it.
So I made a new design file. Wait, let me. I made a new design file, just a copy paste from the pajama design system, and it already has all the components in it. And then I haven't found like any like page template of like the the issue. So I just like use a plugin to convert from HTML to the Figma design in order to modify any components inside. And I found one sort of issue, which I think is pretty concrete in terms of showing like the hierarchy and all the common section and stuff, especially since we are touching on like showing the relationship between the child items and link items. I think this one is a pretty concrete example, and we are sort of building the draft for the two features. First one is the pin features, and second one is the link item feature. And for the pin feature, I'm building the prototypes, and the workflow is sort of when the user scroll to a comment, they can highlight it, and then it will show a sort of tooltip where they can pin to the description with the pin name, description, and create the pin, and then it will show up to the top. This to the top. This one still needs some revision, like how to make it more prominent, and then how the user can unpin and mention like other sections. And when you click on the like this underscore link here, it will like move the user to the bottom of the page. Wait, actually I have the prototype, but yeah, not just the gist of the like of the prototype that I'm building. And then for the link items, Dila, do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, so the linked items, this is more of a work in progress, but this is the same issue if you go to the left. Well, actually, this is fine too. Basically, you can, if you can zoom in, like you can toggle between a list view and then like a tree diagram. And the idea is that it visualizes, and you can like filter between what you want to show, epics, child items, linked items, and then merges. And then if you have a item that is blocking your issue, it is highlighted. The connection is highlighted in red. Um, yeah. And then the idea after this is like you'll be able to hover slash click into each of the items um, in order to see the issues themselves. Um, yeah.
Yeah, this is the original list
Mhm.
view, and this is the tree diagram view.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's what we've been up to now.
Cool. I don't actually know if this matters or not, so take this with a grain of salt. You might want to anonymize these. I know this is a public-facing issue, so someone could just go look at this real issue, but I don't know if it matters or not that it's the real people's names in there. Like if I didn't know these people, I might just think they're fake names you made up. I just happen to know who these people are. So I don't know how much it matters. Although for internal testers, like they'll be like, oh, these are real people. So I don't know if it like would change their perception or anything, but more importantly, I don't know if I think it's fine because this is already publicly available information. Like I don't think there would be any like, like whatever. Like it's not like exposing anything. Um, Otherwise, yeah, I think it makes sense what you're doing. There are a few places where the plugin that you use like messed up some formatting on things. You may get comments from participants about those, which are like extraneous to what you're testing, but it depends on how eagle-eyed they are about it as well. Um, I think overall the concepts that you're testing seem pretty clear, like clearly, like laid out in the thing.
Oh, one question we had was we were a little bit confused on were child items. And then like we know that like child items belong under epics, but is it possible for like a child item to have another item underneath it? Like a
Yes.
child. Okay.
So the way that it works is that epics can have issues as child items, and issues can have tasks as child items. So there's sort of those three levels of hierarchy. So if you're looking at an issue, so I think that it's an issue that you like base this off of. It could have child items that would be tasks.
Mm.
I'm not
And
sure. I don't think that epics can have direct task child items because the yeah. Anyway, those are like kind of the three levels that can be nested under each other.
gotcha. So it's like epics, issues, and then tasks.
Mhm.
Um, and is there anything under tasks where that's like the
No, I don't know if the plan in the future is to allow kind of like just continued nesting, but right now it's just those three levels.
okay. And for like linked items, it could be like a task or issue or
I think linked items can be any of those three. It could be an epic, it could be a task, it could be an issue.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, like, or I'm not so sure if it is doable. If it is an issue, then can we link Epic to the linked items?
I think we can. Yes.
Okay.
Right now on production, there's actually like a weird way you have to do it, but in the soon it's going to be something that someone
Okay,
can just
got
do
it.
directly from. Yeah, right now I think you have to do it from the Epic side on production.
Mm.
Anyway, yes, it's possible for that data to exist.
Okay. Cool. Thanks for confirming.
Something to like don't like go, oh, I got to address that right now or anything, but something to like bear in mind, and this is maybe something that could just go into like discussion, or like if we had more time we would have done this or whatever. I think it would be interesting for you to take a look into how the tree diagram you've got would work for accessibility, because there are a couple of things to bear in mind for that. One is that you don't want to use color alone to signal information, because users who are colorblind or who are using a grayscale screen may not be able to perceive that color difference. So you usually want to have, an icon or text that calls out that information as well. And then also, I don't know, it would be interesting to explore how a keyboard user might manipulate this if they can't do hover and click, like how they might move focus between things, how focus might be visible, that sort of thing. Again, don't like go down a rabbit hole and like focus on that part of it, but it's something to bear in mind if you have like extra time getting into the project, or something to put into your discussion about like, here's how I would maybe approach that, like in the final discussion.
Yeah. And we were going to add icons to like the little diagrams, but haven't yet.
Cool.
And definitely, yeah, keyboard. Navigating with the keyboard.
Like, is there like any accessibility like standard covered in the pajama design system?
Uh, Generally we try to follow WCAG AA. Let me get a link to that. I'm not sure how much specific documentation about that we have in the pajamas documentation, but oh, somebody just dropped a link
I
to
think we have some, but probably that's not enough, I guess. But we have some principal edit fairly recently.
Yeah, there is a best practices, but it is kind of broad. It's like make sure actions can be done with the keyboard, make sure things have focus state, make sure content is presented in text or with a text equivalent, um, make sure that changes in state are announced by a screen reader, and then color combinations should have sufficient contrast. Those are like, kind of some like table stakes stuff. That's one of the pages within. that. So that's some stuff you can read through. Again, don't get too just distracted from it. You know, this is like additional stuff. Like the concept is the important part of what you're doing, but I think it enriches your project if you show that you have an awareness of this stuff. We certainly care about it as a company. Not every company does. A lot of companies don't do any accessibility stuff and they don't really care about it. So I do think it makes you like a stronger job candidate when you're in the market, like to know about this stuff and know how it works and have some experience with it.
So if I were you, maybe I would consider adding this part of the final presentation, final report that like you may want to consider this further in the future, but like not for now.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Item that I was thinking about is when we're looking at the like what it's blocking or what is blocked by, it is a two-way street. So I was wondering, kind of going back to Chad's accessibility piece as well, but thinking about how can you represent the relationship that is bidirectional. So if something is blocked by something, and then if it blocks by it, I don't know if that was representative in the design or if the red piece would kind of stem out differently.
Mhm.
Oh, that's a good point. So if the current issue, like the circle in the middle, is blocking something, but also is blocked by something else, how do I tell the difference between those two things?
Yeah, just usually the case for a lot of things.
Mhm.
You're like,
And
well, I'm
in
ready
the
for
table,
this.
we say blocks or is blocked by. Like we've got text that says it pretty clearly, but it's interesting. It's an interesting challenge to think about how to like make that a visual thing.
Yeah, because that would be probably one of the more important visualizations for an engineer. I'm sure they've already mentioned it. Is like the first thing I look at is, can I get started on this? And if they're like, oh, well, you know, the issue is completely blocked, I'll move on to something else until it's actually resolved, whether it's an MR or another issue actually being closed.
The last thing that I have on the agenda for today is just a little bit of housekeeping because I know that you've got a lot on the go. I'm going to be out of office this Friday until Tuesday. So next time we talk, I will like be getting caught up basically from days off. And then Sunshine, it looks like you're also going to be out for a bit in the middle of the month.
Yeah. And next week I have meeting conflicts, so I cannot join. I'll try to join maybe in the very beginning, but yeah, I need to hop off.
And then also that week of May 7th, I'm going to be traveling. But if we schedule stuff, then I'll still join. I'll be on the West Coast. Yeah, my wife is going to Figma Config, so I'm tagging along to take a trip to San Francisco.
Ooh, I didn't know Figma. Okay, gotcha. Interesting. I didn't know they had a conference every single year.
They do. They have well, it's big among designers. So, other people I think don't really, it's niche, but
Yeah, very cool.
yeah, she managed to get her company to send her.
Yes.
That's all we've got on the agenda. Is there other stuff that's like top of mind for the four of you, or any other like feedback or questions from other GitLab folks?
I'll just like put it here, but I think our final presentation with Linda is on the 8th of May.
Okay.
Yeah. And like most of our reports are due on the 2nd. But I think maybe for the practice round, maybe around like May 5th would be good so that we have some time to make edits before our actual presentation. But yeah.
And do you know if
Sure.
that period is reading week or is it like would we have classes that week?
I think our last day of class is 28th April, and then it's reading week. And then May 2nd is like start of exam week, I think.
Okay. So that would mean that if we did something on Monday, May 5th, there's a chance that some of you may have like other like finals going on to schedule around.
Maybe we will get back to
Yeah,
you.
we'll get back to you
Yeah,
about like
yeah.
the
Let
exact.
us know. Let us know dates that will work for you for like a mock grooming session. Sounds like maybe that would want to be last week of April. And then for like an internal presentation, with our folks. And then, also if we want to do a retro, I don't know what, like the day after my last final, I like went back home in college. You know what I mean? Like I was not around anymore. So like, I don't know if a final retro before the end of finals makes more sense for you, or like after it's all done, or like if you want to, like just let me know like where it makes sense for you to put that in your schedule, and then we'll figure out like how we can schedule that stuff. Anything else? Otherwise we can wrap it up.
Actually, I was like looking quickly through the notes. I am remembering we wanted to ask you specifically one thing about the pinup feature. Just because right now it's not super distinguishable from like the rest of the page. So Linda had suggested that we maybe just like make it like intentionally draw the attention to the pin feature. That way we can actually like get feedback on it
Mhm.
instead of like seeing if it's findable, if that makes sense. Um, and so I'm wondering like what your guys' thoughts on that is.
I did notice that when On was showing that um part of the prototype, that it looks like it's actually not at the top or bottom of the description. It looks like right now you've got it inserted kind of amidst the description. I don't really know how that would work because the description is user editable content. It would probably need, functionally, it would probably need to be like after the description, or if you want to do this, put it like before the description block. Um, so like positionally, maybe that makes it more discoverable. I do think like there are sort of, two separate things there, right? One is like, yeah, is like, can someone find it if it doesn't have like, a big box around it? And does it matter if they can't? And does it matter if they think it's part of the description or if they think it's a separate thing, Because like if someone's reading through the description and the last part of the description is like pinned comments, they may well think that whoever wrote the description just curated that list and it doesn't really matter to them, just the information is there and they can access it. Or you could like put a box around it and then it looks kind of like one of these other widgets that's not an issue, right? They're like child items and the linked items and the related merge request. So I think there's a couple different ways you could do it. I think it might be interesting to talk to the designers who are like the DRIs for this area. Both of them are named Nick. Um, um, yeah, there are these two closely related teams in Plan. One is project management and one is product management, and they work very closely together, and it can be kind of blurry where the line is between like who owns what feature. But like these two designers work very closely together. I think it would be interesting. Yeah, someone just tagged them both in there, Nick Leonard and Nick Brandt. I think it'd be interesting for you to get some feedback from them on this prototype as well, because they can tell you a couple of things. They could tell you like where the features are going, like where they have plans already that are not enacted anywhere. And they can also, I think, help you kind of like give you some ideas on how this can like kind of fit into what they've got going on. So let me talk to I let them know about this project at the beginning and they were like enthusiastic about it, but I haven't asked them to participate in any particular way since. So maybe we can get some feedback from them. If you can give us a link to the prototype, I think the easiest way to do this in a GitLab way might be to like share the link to the prototype with them and they can give some async feedback via like comments in the Figma file sort of thing. I think they'd be open to that.
Going back to kind of your question as to how do we show the actual pop-up, and then how do we make it more kind of central to the user. So in GitLab, we do actually have a phased approach that you can take. So as in when we have new features, we do have the option of like, do you want to check out the new features? And I believe we play around with placement of them a little bit sometimes. Chad, I don't know how much A/B testing we actually do on that side, because I haven't worked a lot in the web UI. But that is something that potentially you can think through, as in like, hey, this is an unknown, but when we do, whether it is an experiment or a beta where actual users are looking at it, you can kind of play around with if you want to do even A/B testing there, or if you want to present a specific view for the 50% and then the other 50 get the other view, and you can see which one you get a different reaction to. But there are stages that you can employ past research. Not best practices on the product side to not be sure of where do you want to place it, but that is an option you have before you finally release the product as general availability. So just know there's a few steps you can take to kind of like finalize your solution.
Yeah, I think this is there's a lot of stuff that could go into like a, discussion section, right? If you think about this as a lab report of like, here's a bunch of stuff that if we had more time, like it would be great to go through these things. One note on A/B testing is like, do try to approach A/B testing as like, we've got these equally valid options and we want to see which one works better, not like we have no idea, so let's just try a couple things. So don't take it to be like, well, I guess we'll just figure it out by trying a couple things in prod. Like don't basically, like, before you A/B test, you should have a couple of things that you think like these could legitimately work. So let's try them both and see which one works better, as opposed to like, we don't know which of these works.
So do you recommend that we do like A/B testing in our second round user testing and like after the concept testing?
I mean, I think that you may not have time. Yeah, and this is part of the unfortunate nature of like time boxing with something like this, is that like, if you have the time to do it, to make like a couple different versions and then like talk to people about it in a way where you can like collect good data about it, then that sounds great. It's just like, don't try to do the whole world, I think it's also like, it is a very legit thing in a project like this as well, to like have thought about it and be like, here's what I would love to do. We didn't have time, but like have some discussion about it in your final results,
I think a follow-up I have to like the pin feature. Do you guys think we should, when we're testing, that we should tell them, like explicitly tell them like we have a pin up feature and like explore it, or just like let them kind of like figure out if they can even like find it on their own? Because like another aspect, or like one of the questions we ended up adding based on Linda's feedback was kind of seeing what other information we would want to add on a pin. So like maybe like the date or the person who pinned it, or like the person who made the comment and stuff. Um, and so like that information, I guess we wouldn't be able to get unless they're able to find it. And so, and that's kind of like where our heads were at.
You
Well,
could,
oh,
sorry.
fine. No.
You could have it almost time boxed, like start with a question to see if they can find it or if they do notice it, and then limit to a certain amount of time. Like if they don't see it, then move on to the next thing, and the next thing can be like, we do have this feature, explore it, and then you can go deeper into those questions.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I was just gonna say to like, try to stay true to the big question you're trying to answer, right? Which is like, someone just sent me a link to this issue and said like, hey, can you pick this up? The person who was working on this is like on parental leave or whatever. They're not going to say, hey, can you pick this up? Like, check out the pinned comments or whatever. So like, does this feature help that person who just like has access to whatever's there get more information and get onboarded faster? So whatever helps you answer that question is, I think, the way that you should pursue it. And I think Gina's method is a good one. Is like see if they find it and then like awkwardly wait for 2 minutes, and if they just don't do it, be like, okay, well, we have this pin feature, pinned comments feature. We want to see like, what do you think about that? Whatever, then you can like give them the piece of information that they couldn't find. You write down, okay, this person like wasn't able to find it, so we didn't succeed on that with this participant. Move on to like subsequent questions that rely on knowledge of the existence of this.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
And I have a questions about your design. So I would also maybe adjust the visuals a little bit, like to be more distinctive, because it's pinned. Like I was also thinking of the Notion blog, like is it a call out feature that like they use like box with a different background color, so you can play around with the box and maybe with the different background colors. Or if you want to go a slightly lighter in terms of the visual load, then you can also consider using the lines so that people can clearly see that, okay, this is the pin section and the others are still editable issue epic description. I think if you like make this adjustment, I think it'll make it even more distinctive. I wouldn't worry about discoverability. And another question is about like, so I probably didn't hear this, but how can user unpin the ones perhaps I pinned something, but I just wanted to remove it. Like how would that work in this flow?
Yeah, that's what we're also thinking about. And the idea is just like when you click on the pin icon, it can sort of like have a pop for them to choose to unpin the thing.
So I'm just thinking out loud, but I might use the same drop down that's you started the journey, like pin to the description. I might use the same interaction to unpin because it's to me more like start and finish. But yeah, just one idea. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Circling back
good.
around as well on the like the visual treatment of the pins. You may have this. We didn't see it in what you shared. But like I would, pick some arbitrary high but not too high number, like 15 and or 20, and just like try to make 15 or 20 different versions of it. Just like produce a lot of them. They don't have to be good. Just make different ideas for yourself, just to like, it's kind of like Crazy Eights. Because you may find something that you didn't expect that you actually think may work well with it. Like generate a bunch of ideas for the way that it could work, because then that can like foster discussion between the four of you as well about these different ideas. That also, it's something fairly common, I think, when doing this kind of thing. Is to like just try it, like create a bunch of stuff. Don't think about whether they're good or not, and then kind of go back with an editor's eye to like try to see what works about them. And that also is like I think a good thing to include in kind of like the final project stuff, as well as like here's like all the messy stuff and like here's what we ended up with, and then talking about kind of the why of like what you took out of that and what was valuable, and you move forward into like kind of your final version. One of the hardest parts, I think, well, besides like convincing people that they should or should not do things, but one of the hardest parts about design, I think, is like telling the story of how you got to, like showing your work about how you got to the thing, as opposed to just like, oh, it's just, this is just what it is. Like being able to explain the why of how of what's going on with it is a really valuable thing to do. And I think it also helps a lot in this context.
I was going to say 100% on that. The journey of how you got to where you did are, I think, sometimes way more. Obviously, the findings are very valuable because that is what you found, but thinking or knowing how you thought through the problem and then what are some of the obstacles that you faced kind of frame our decision making for the future. And also, if you think about like one of GitLab's core values is transparency, and like we want to offer that to our customers, like no matter what we do. Obviously, UX research with participants is not something that's available to them, but I think that is something really important to also be really transparent with your stakeholders as to what are some of the limitations you did, just in the future in your career professionally, because that is something that you can ask for in the future. So if you are blocked by, let's say, like a 30-minute limit on something, you're like, can we get the next thing, and make sure that it's an hour limit, whether it's tooling or something else, but be transparent. Don't try to kind of cover up the potholes.
And I have another quick thought about design for this diagram, option tree diagram. I think it's a good start, but I may consider to just to reduce the visual load on this objects here. I might consider use different type of gray here. I mean, like, yeah, it could be quite tricky if you're considering the accessibility point of view because the background is not white. So it might be a little tricky to find the right gray, but if you use maybe a lighter line or a lighter color, or you can also play around with the line style, then you can perhaps like, because it's just the neutral lines, but once user hover over, then it's starting to be more interactive. So I think the highlights should stay there, but the neutral lines can be a little bit more dimmed. I think that would already help for users. Yeah.
You're talking about like the connections between the
The connect, yeah, the lines.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, what have you looked at for comps on that network diagram?
There was
Like, have you looked at any other products that do a similar sort of thing?
there there's an image right next to there.
It looked like there was like a Jira nested
Yeah.
thing next to it, but it was just rows, right?
Yeah, those are rows.
There's a product that I use called Obsidian. It's like a markdown notes editing software that has this kind of like tree diagram visualization. I'm not saying they like are like the best in the world at it or whatever, but it's one that I know of that does this kind of like connections between things. They don't have typed connections. Like they don't have like this is blocked by that. It's just like it's just a node network. But it would, again, I think it's like a good thing to have as like part of your final stuff to show like here's some other instances of this out in the world that we've looked at and kind of gathered like what are they doing that works well for our use case kind of thing. Make sure to grab some of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I was also looking at this other thing where it like it has nothing related to like project management, I guess, but it's like it like connects different professors, like academic connections in a university.
Yeah, and it doesn't need to be in the same domain at all, right? Because it's the network visualization that you're looking for. So I think it's actually good to look at other examples that are other use cases but are trying to visualize the same sort of data relationships.
Mhm.
But do you think it's the right screenshot? I just Googled it and got this one, but I haven't used that feature, so it's just the right screen.
This?
Yeah,
I don't know what that is.
really.
Is that
It's from
let
yeah.
let me see if I can take a screenshot of it in my Obsidian in a way that won't have like a bunch of my personal information in it. Yeah, okay. If I zoom way out, here I'm gonna share my screen and then you can see this. Um, this is like the network visualization of like every single node that I have in Obsidian. And if I zoom in, there's like obvious clusters of things. It's all just about the connections between them. They do have like filters and stuff. So like if I put in tags, a bunch of other stuff is going to show up in here. But this is kind of what they're doing. So theirs is like simple. It's just node networks connected. There's no like typing of the information on them. I think maybe if you put tags in, they're a different color, but that's it. The connections between them are still just one-to-one connections. The thing you're talking about with like professor connections sounds interesting as well, because it sounds to me like maybe that would have a bit of typing to the information, like was student of or taught, or I don't know, I'm just speculating, but yeah, that screenshot you dropped in the doc looks like,
Yeah, I
yeah.
replaced. Thank you for sharing the screen.
Oh wow, Gene's getting a tree cut down. Okay. Anything else? We've got, another 10 minutes, or we could jump off now. Okay. For the Figma file, I saw that you shared the link. If you wouldn't mind, could you like literally record like, a 30 to 90-second thing of yourself explaining what you want those designers to do in there, just like a quick video of just like, hey, like we're looking, like basically help me help you to get the feedback that you want and not irrelevant feedback from them. Like say like we're looking for feedback on this or that. If you have any comments about this or suggestions about that, those would be great. Just because otherwise they're just going to come at it from wherever they're at. Like I think a quick video that just gives them some context on what you're looking for in their feedback will help kind of channel that. And it doesn't really have to be a video, I guess. You could just write something up as well, but video, like extemporaneously, just like recording a video is maybe faster. Depends on your learning style.
Yeah, I can do that after I fix the prototype.
Cool.
And you're talking about the pinup feature, right?
For both. So I'm going to share the link to the Figma file with those designers and ask them if they can like add some comments and give some feedback. But I just want to make sure that you're getting the kind of feedback you're interested in, and not like feedback that's, because they may comment on like, oh, like this is not the way this really looks in production, and you'll be like, that doesn't matter, that's not really part of the design, you know what I mean? So just a little bit of context that helps them give you the feedback that you're looking for, as opposed to like wasting possibly their time and your time like talking about stuff that's not really functional.
Okay, that's good.
Great. Well, have a good week, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Night, everybody.